Have you ever looked at some older people and thought, wow, how do they still do that? Aging comes with its own rhythm. Some slow down, some pause, and then there are a few rare souls, gems really, who seem to shine brighter with each passing year. They still do things most people their age gave up long ago, and it's not always the things you'd expect. These actions aren't about running marathons or lifting weights. They're quieter, more meaningful, and far more impressive than they first appear. In today's video, we're going to explore 5 unexpected things that, if you're still doing them between the ages of 70 and 85, make you a true one-in-a-million gem. These aren't everyday habits. These are signs of rare emotional strength, sharpness, and wisdom. Traits that don't fade with time, but instead deepen if you nurture them. Maybe you'll find yourself nodding along, recognizing something in your own life, or maybe you'll see a loved one reflected in these qualities. Either way, you'll come away with a clearer picture of just how extraordinary certain people really are. So, if you're someone who still believes in growth, kindness, independence, and laughter, stick around. You might just realize that you've become the kind of person others admire more than you ever knew. Let's begin. Number 1. Still learning new skills. There's something quietly remarkable about someone in their 70s or 80s who still approaches life with the mindset of a beginner. If you're still learning new skills, whether it's using a smartphone, trying your hand at painting, mastering video calls with grandkids, or even starting a new language, you are showing a rare and powerful form of mental agility that defies every stereotype about aging. Most people slow down, not just physically, but mentally. They settle into routines, repeat familiar tasks, and gradually stop reaching out for new information. But those who continue learning are wired differently. They stay curious, they stay mentally active, and perhaps most importantly, they remain open to change. That openness is a treasure in itself. You see, the brain is like a muscle. It needs to be challenged. And while physical activity keeps the body young, learning new skills is what keeps the mind young. Seniors who continue to learn, especially after retirement, often experience better memory, sharper problem-solving skills, and even a more positive outlook on life. They wake up with purpose because they've given themselves something new to explore. Take the example of Frank, a 78-year-old former school janitor who decided to learn how to play the piano. He'd never touched a keyboard in his life, but he watched videos online, practiced each morning after breakfast, and slowly taught himself basic melodies. It wasn't about becoming a performer, it was about the joy of doing something new. Now, a few years later, he plays for his great-grandkids when they visit. His hands may move slower, but his mind is vibrant. That kind of story isn't rare among lifelong learners. Whether it's picking up watercolor painting, joining a community class on local history, or even tinkering with a new tablet, these actions all signal something much deeper. You still believe in your ability to grow. And that belief creates a ripple effect throughout the rest of your life. Psychologists have long known that people who engage in lifelong learning tend to have stronger self-esteem and better emotional resilience. Why? Because when you learn something new, you remind yourself that you're capable, that you're still evolving, and that no matter your age, you can still surprise yourself. In a world that often assumes older adults have nothing new to discover, being a learner sets you apart. It keeps you relevant, not just in conversations with younger folks, but in how you relate to the world around you. You're not stuck in the past, you're part of the present. So if you're in your 70s or 80s and still picking up new skills, take a moment to realize how rare that is. You're not just passing the time, you're demonstrating something powerful. You're saying, I still have more to experience, I still have more to give. And in doing so, you become a quiet inspiration to everyone who knows you. Number 2, offering emotional support to others. There's a quiet strength in being the person others come to when life feels heavy. If you're between 70 and 85 and people still lean on you for emotional support, Whether it's a neighbor needing advice, a younger family member looking for comfort, or even an old friend sharing their burdens, you are doing something truly rare. You're offering the kind of calm, steady presence that the world deeply needs. But only a few are able to give. Emotional support isn't always loud or obvious. It can show up in a gentle nod, a knowing smile, or just the way you listen without rushing to respond. It's in the simple way you say, "I've been there," and suddenly someone else doesn't feel so alone. And when you've lived through decades of love, loss, change, and growth, that kind of wisdom becomes your superpower. What makes this so unexpected is how rare it becomes with age. Many people begin to shrink into themselves as they get older, often feeling overlooked or disconnected from the world around them, but not you. If you're still showing up for others, emotionally, still making space for their pain, their stories, their joy, you've held on to something incredibly valuable, your sense of empathy. And empathy, especially at your age, is not just kindness. It's courage. Because it means you've walked through enough of life's storms to understand what people feel. But you haven't let those storms make you cold. You've stayed open. You've stayed kind. That alone sets you apart. Take the story of Betty, an 82-year-old widow who began volunteering at a local grief support group after losing her husband. She didn't have a psychology degree. She didn't come in with all the answers. But what she did have was presence. When she spoke, people listened. When she stayed quiet, people felt safe. And over time, her ability to simply be there for others became one of the most healing parts of that group. People like Betty don't just offer advice, they offer peace. And if you're someone who does that too, you're more than just supportive. You're a rare light in a world that often moves too fast and feels too noisy. You give people a place to land when they feel unsteady. Psychologically speaking, older adults who continue to provide emotional care for others also tend to feel more fulfilled themselves. It reinforces your sense of purpose. It keeps your heart engaged with the people around you. And perhaps most importantly, it shows that no matter what you've gone through, you've chosen to remain loving and connected. That's not common. In fact, it's incredibly special. If at your age you're still showing up for others, still lifting them up when they're down, you are doing something that many half your age still struggle to master. And in doing so, you're proving that strength doesn't always come from muscles or memory. It comes from compassion. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 3, staying curious about the world. There's something deeply inspiring about someone in their 70s or 80s who still lights up with curiosity. If you're the kind of person who keeps asking questions, who still enjoys learning, who picks up a new book or watches documentaries not just to pass time but to understand more about the world, then you are a true gem. Why? Because staying curious at this stage of life is far more powerful than most people realize. As we age, it's easy, too easy really, for our worlds to shrink. The routines become tighter. The familiar becomes more comfortable. And we start to believe that everything worth learning has already been learned. But not you. If you still wake up wondering, what can I discover today? You're doing something rare and remarkable. Curiosity keeps the brain alive. Studies have shown that seniors who remain mentally engaged and open to new information have better memory retention, lower risk of cognitive decline, and even greater emotional resilience. That's not just theory, it's science. Curiosity creates new neural connections. It keeps your brain flexible, your perspective fresh, and your spirit young. Think about Howard, a retired mailman in his late 70s who decided to take up astronomy after watching a documentary on the stars. He bought a simple telescope, joined a local stargazers club, and now spends his evenings charting constellations and learning about planets. He says, "It makes me feel small, but in a good way, like I'm still part of something bigger. That's the gift of curiosity. It reminds you that the world is still wide, even when your body isn't as quick as it once was. And curiosity doesn't have to be grand. It can be as simple as asking your grandson how his video game works, or as profound as reading about a new philosophy that challenges your beliefs. The point is that you haven't shut the door on growth. You still see life as an open book, not a closed chapter. Psychologically, this attitude keeps people emotionally balanced and hopeful. Curious people tend to be less judgmental and more adaptable. They navigate changes, whether it's in society, technology, or personal relationships, with more grace, because they aren't afraid to say, "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out." And in a world where cynicism often grows with age, your curiosity is a quiet rebellion. It says you haven't given in to apathy. You haven't stopped caring. You're still engaged, still fascinated, still alive in the truest sense. If that sounds like you, then please know your mind is a rare gift, not because you have all the answers, but because you're still eager to ask the questions. And that quality, especially in your golden years, is a shining example to everyone around you. Number 4, speaking kindly about yourself. If you're between 70 and 85 and you've learned to speak kindly about yourself, that's extraordinary. That's rare. That's strength. Because believe me, most people spend their whole lives criticizing themselves in their own minds. And by the time they reach their golden years, that internal voice has worn them down. But if you've trained yourself or naturally grown into someone who says things like, "I'm proud of how far I've come," or "I did my best," then you're not just lucky, you're wise. You see, aging can often come with a surprising amount of self-doubt. We reflect more. We remember mistakes. We wonder if we were good parents, good spouses, good humans. And sadly, many older adults let those questions become self-punishment. But you, if you've made peace with your past and speak to yourself like a dear friend, that's no small feat. It takes strength to speak softly to your own heart. It takes maturity to look in the mirror and see not wrinkles or regrets, but experience. And that kind of inner voice doesn't just happen. It's cultivated through years of hardship, through learning how to let go, through realizing that perfection was never the goal. Growth was. Psychologists often say that the voice we use with ourselves becomes our emotional home. If that home is full of judgment, we shrink. If it's full of compassion, we thrive. So if you've built a gentle, forgiving, and encouraging voice inside, you've created a sanctuary, one that protects your mind from bitterness, your spirit from resentment, and your relationships from unnecessary strain. Let me give you an example. Margaret, a retired nurse from Ohio in her early 80s, once said something that stuck with me. She said, "I used to beat myself up for not doing enough. Now I say, Margaret, you did the best you could with what you knew at the time." That one sentence changed how I sleep at night. That's not just healing, that's wisdom in action. And here's something powerful to understand. People who speak kindly to themselves also tend to speak more kindly to others. That means you're probably a source of peace for your family, your friends, and even strangers. Your words carry calm, your tone is tension-free, and your presence reminds others that it's okay to be imperfect and still worthy of love. In a world that constantly tells us we're never enough, not young enough, not healthy enough, not productive enough, your self-compassion is a quiet act of rebellion. You're telling the world and yourself that being enough isn't something to earn, it's something to recognize. So, if you catch yourself saying, "I've lived a good life," or "I like who I am today," take a moment to acknowledge that, because that mindset didn't come easy. It's the result of 1,000 inner battles won, the kind most people will never even see. And that makes you not just rare, but remarkable. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 5, staying curious about life. If at age 70, 75, or even 85, you're still curious, still asking questions, still reading, still exploring new ideas, you're a rare and beautiful soul. Curiosity at that stage of life is not just a trait, it's a quiet declaration that your spirit is still very much alive. And believe me, that makes you one in a million. Because here's the truth, most people at some point stop asking why or how or what else. They settle into routines. They assume they've learned all there is to know. They stop being surprised by the world. But if you're someone who still picks up books, still tries new foods, still watches documentaries, still asks your grandkids about their interests, that's not just impressive, that's inspiring. You see, staying curious is one of the best ways to stay young at heart. It keeps your brain active, your outlook fresh, and your relationships richer. Curiosity means you haven't let life wear you down into passivity. You're still reaching, still growing, still opening yourself to the unknown. That takes courage, especially in a world that often tells older folks to sit down, be quiet, and let the world move on without them. And there's a psychological benefit to all of this too. Studies show that older adults who stay intellectually curious often experience better memory, sharper reasoning, and lower levels of depression. That's because curiosity creates movement, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. It gives you something to look forward to. It invites surprise, and surprise is one of the ingredients of joy. Let me tell you about Robert, a 78-year-old gentleman from Arizona. Every morning, he watches one educational video online about history, nature, or science. He says it gives him something new to think about every day. One day, it was the mating habits of penguins. The next, it was how coffee beans are processed in Ethiopia. I may never travel again, he said, but my mind gets to go somewhere new each day. That's the power of staying curious. What's more, curiosity helps you connect across generations. When you ask your grandchild how TikTok works, or what books they're reading in school, or how 3D printing is changing medicine, you're building bridges. You're saying, I'm still part of the conversation. And that sends a message not just to others, but to yourself. I still matter. And don't underestimate the impact that has. People notice when someone your age is still growing. It gives them hope. It tells them that aging doesn't have to mean shrinking, that the mind and soul can keep expanding right to the very end. So if you're still lighting up when you learn something new, if you still say, that's interesting, when someone shares a fact, if you still sit in quiet awe when watching the sunset or hearing a bird you've never heard before, you are truly a gem in this world. Because your curiosity is a light. And in a world that too often dims with age, your light stands tall, steady, and bright. Final thoughts. If you've made it this far and found yourself nodding, smiling, or even feeling a little emotional, that tells me something important. You still care about growing. You still want to know that your efforts, your choices, your heart still matter in this world. And let me tell you, they do, more than ever. The truth is, reaching 70, 80, or even beyond isn't the end of your story. It's a powerful chapter filled with wisdom, depth, and beauty that younger folks often can't even imagine. But it's easy to forget that when society tries to write you off, or when your body doesn't move quite the way it used to, or when friends start disappearing and loneliness creeps in quietly. That's why recognizing and honoring these 5 things you're still doing is so essential. Whether it's staying kind when it would be easier to grow bitter, keeping your independence in little ways others don't notice, standing up for your boundaries, offering quiet generosity, or keeping that spark of curiosity alive. These aren't small traits, they're quiet miracles. And maybe you don't hear that enough. Maybe the people around you are too busy to notice, or maybe you're too humble to point it out. But just because it's unspoken doesn't mean it's unseen. You're the kind of person others look at and quietly admire. The kind of soul who proves that age doesn't dim our light, it refines it. So don't ever let anyone tell you that what you do doesn't count. It does. And not just for you, but for the people watching, your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, even strangers at the grocery store. The way you live tells a story, and it's one worth sharing. You're not ordinary. You're not just getting by. You're doing something rare, holding on to your humanity, your dignity, your curiosity, and your compassion in a world that often pushes people to let those go. That's why you're a one-in-a-million gem, and I hope you never forget it. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.